Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I think what we'll do is we'll kick straight off with this call. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for participating. We're going to be talking this afternoon, as you all know, about the recently signed cooperation agreement between Northern Iron and Danieli. Danieli Centro Metallics is the official name of the company. So thank you for attending. Please be advised that this is an open line, and we'd appreciate that if everybody could hold questions until we've given the outline and the benefits of the agreement, which will take place first. Then we're going to conduct a question and answer session. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to turn the conference over to Basil Beaufort, who is the President and CEO of Northern Iron, to give you the outline, and then we can get into the Q&A session.
Good afternoon, everybody. Basil Beaufort. I'm going to start off with a disclaimer and say that everything that we say here, please don't hold it against us. And that's as far as the disclaimer will go. I wish to start the call off with some highlights of Northern Iron together with some of the history of the company. And I know some of you have heard this before, but between Michael and I, we'll provide an overview about Danieli and the benefits of the cooperation agreement and what really it means for Northern Iron. A little bit about Northern Iron to begin with, and I don't want to bore you. It's a past-producing mine. Stelco started this in 1976, shut it down in 1986, and it was mainly due to market conditions. If any of you were in the business in the 80s, you would know that they could buy iron ore across from Minnesota for way cheaper than they could produce it. It was really an economic decision. The Griffiths mine produced 1.6 million tonnes of pellets per annum, as well as 300,000 tonnes of sponge iron. And when I say 300,000 tonnes of sponge iron, it was actually reduced iron. So they took the pellets and made sponge iron into them via a rotary kiln. So, very important aspect here is the metallurgy of the mine is actually proven. There's no question about that. And this is one of the things that Danieli alluded to, particularly when they started negotiations with us. There's also the potential to ship the product to Thunder Bay, into the Great Lakes steel mills, where certainly 60% of American steel is made in the Great Lakes. By Montreal and Prince Rupert as well. So great infrastructure there. Unlike many Canadian iron deposits, there's not a huge amount of infrastructure. And if you look at some of the infrastructure builds for some of the projects, you'll see that some of them require $2 billion just to be able to ship it down to Seattle. So great infrastructure. With access to gas, electricity, and also located in a historic mining district. Although they predominantly mine gold in that particular area, it is a historic mining district. No shortage of labour in water between Dryden and Kenora. Most importantly, there's competent tailings ponds in place, as well as we have the potential to use the South Pit as a tailings pond as well. That's extremely important. We also have in excess of $900,000 in the till at the current burn rate. This should last us, if we sold the pumps that we have and the pipes that we have, we'd probably get in another $700,000, but that is not that's not the intent now, as we're fully funded. There's a great deal of support from the local communities, and we are in discussions and will be in discussions and continued discussions with First Nations group. I'd like to move on to the cooperation agreement with Danieli. And between Michael Hepworth and myself, we'll outline the details of this. And I'd really like to turn it over to Michael now to go through the first part of it.
Under the cooperation agreement, Northern Iron and Danieli have agreed to cooperate on developing the past-producing Griffith mine. And although no feasibility study has been completed, the scope of the agreement contemplates the installation of a fully integrated operation, which comprises not only reopening the past-producing mine, but it would also involve installing a concentration plant, a pelletization plant, and an energon or HYL direct reduction plant, along with an HBI briquetting plant, and all the related auxiliary systems that go with a project of this nature. And the goal is to eventually produce 1.5 million tons of HBI. Danieli has agreed to be Northern Iron's technology partner for both marketing and promoting the project to strategic partners, which would largely be steel mills, to financiers, very good financial connections in the financial markets, and also they have agreed to introduce us to final product off-takers so that we can get the necessary funding to cover the expenses to, first of all, do a bankable feasibility study and then to actually bring this project to fruition. I think one of the most important parts about this deal is that Danieli will provide all of the technical information that we require in order to get us the bankable feasibility study. This is a very significant commitment on their behalf and involves a significant amount of money. There will be some metallurgical testing that we'll have to do, which we will have to fund, but other than that, Danieli is going to really manage the technology, or providing all that technological information. So, in terms of the commitments that we've got, Danieli is going to introduce us to financiers, to the steel mills, to the off-takers, and then our job is to do certain things with the property, like dewatering the pit, making sure that we complete the mineral reserve calculations and that kind of thing. And then once it's funded, we will then complete the bankable feasibility study, and then Danieli will provide the technical support for that. And of course, that will mean defining the final plant configuration and the financials of this. So all in all, there's a large amount of work still to do, but we have a very significant commitment from Danieli, and on top of that, they own steel mills and have agreed to do an offtake agreement with us for 500,000 tons of HBI, and we see that as a very significant vote of confidence. Just a little bit about Danieli. Unfortunately, I apologize. The Danieli people were supposed to be here today, but because of travel arrangements, that has not been possible. But Danieli is one of the top 3 suppliers to the steel manufacturing industry in the world, and their revenues last year were 7 billion euros. They have 11,000 employees, and last year spent 140 million alone in R&D. And their product line covers everything from iron ore processing right through concentration, pelletizing, direct reduction, melting, rolling, and so on. They do everything right to the very end. So Danieli is one of the main contractors with HYL as part of the Sonova Alliance, and they pioneered the HYL direct reduction technology. So right now I'm going to leave it at that. I don't think there's anything more to say about Danieli, but if anybody...
Well, I think it's significant to say that Danieli commissioned 23 separate plants of whatever configuration it was in 23 countries in 2013. It was quite a significant achievement, and visiting Dongbu Steel, which produces in the order of about 3,000 tons of steel per annum, mainly rolled products in Korea, South Korea, we came across Danieli then, and we actually hadn't even heard of Danieli a couple of years ago. So it is a significant company. The fact that they want to do a cooperation agreement with Northern Iron is for a number of different reasons. It's why I explained, A, A, the logistics, B, the fast producing mine. Proven metallurgy is one of the key aspects. In their words, the metallization of the ore at Griffiths is key, and it metallizes very well, meaning it converts to a steel product extremely well with very low deleterious materials, and it's well positioned. And we all know that positioning in there are mine deposits in the middle of nowhere which take $3 billion to just provide the infrastructure. I mean, it doesn't make much sense. It doesn't, we don't have that challenge with Northern Iron. The key ingredients to moving this project forward are on the table. It's just taken an inordinate amount of time to bring in somebody who has done an enormous amount of work, particularly on desktop studies at high level, to ensure that this project actually works. And Danieli has satisfied themselves in-house that this feasibility of this project works. So I can't emphasize that enough. And for us, it's an extremely exciting event, and it's taken quite some time to achieve where we are today. So Michael wanted to turn it over to Q&A, and I think that's the right thing to do. We're open for questions, gentlemen.
So if you,
ladies and gentlemen,
if you have your phone on mute, now's the time to unmute it when you want to speak, although I know it could be a bit of a bum fight with 14 or 15 people all asking questions at the same time, but anybody who has a question, let's see if we can get that sorted out now. Let's hear what you've got to ask about.
Jeff Calloway at Canaccord. Hi, guys.
Hi, Jeff. Yes.
So what are the next sort of concrete steps that Danieli will be taking? And then what are Northern Iron's plans to execute over the course of the year and the capital costs for that?
Yes, Danieli has undertaken to take us to steel mills throughout the world at a very high level, to introduce us at a very high level. Coupled with that, they will be explaining to the steel mills the metallization of Griffiths mine and how it metallizes and low deleterious materials, etc. The other thing that they will do is take us to investors at a particularly high level as well. And also, what they will do is supply us with proprietary information that will assist us in completing our bankable feasibility study, which, to our minds, have taking you through a bankable feasibility study than an actual producer of the equipment, because they will know what is required as feedstock. And we estimate those values, or some of the values that they have thrown on the table, that's about $2 to $3 million that they are prepared to assist us with throughout the state. So it's not only getting us into all the steel mills at a high level, but also a lot of technical information.
Okay, is the roadshow with Danieli, so to speak, happening starting this summer, or do you guys, does Northern Iron have to first complete the metallurgical testing and mineral recalculation?
The roadshows will begin virtually immediately. We have a Danieli representative coming into town tomorrow, whereupon we will sit and work out a schedule. So they will begin immediately. Yes.
Do you have an idea of the capital costs to complete the metallurgical testing, the dewatering, and the mineral recalculation?
I do. The costs to complete the environmental baseline studies, complete a drill program, and I should have started off with dewatering, because dewatering, environmental baseline, and then drilling is in the order, and to come up with a 43-101 reserve is in the order of about $8.2 million. About $2 million. and the banker bill will be in the order of about $20 million. And that will be cut down quite substantially because there's no better partner than Danieli, who can assist the engineering firm with what is required to complete this process. So, does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it begs the question, so how are you going to finance that? But I'll leave that open. Whatever you want to do.
That is part of Danieli's job, is to bring in the required $30 million to get to that stage. And how we do it could be done a number of different ways. One would be through a joint venture agreement. One would be through an investor with an interest to build. So there's a number of different computations that we've thought of in terms of bringing that money in. And we're working very, very hard on that as we speak.
Are you in any discussions with any particular parties now? Towards reaching that goal?
We're talking to people, Jeff.
All right.
I hope that provides sufficient detail.
I think that's probably all your lawyers will allow you to. So I'll just ask briefly again, are there any avenues still being pursued or lines of communication still open as far as potential investors, or has that kind of gone by the by that deal last year?
I know what Jeff's getting at, and I would rather not answer that question, to be quite frank.
Anybody else with questions? Or Jeff, you can keep going.
Insiders buying stock, or are you guys blacked out?
We're blacked out at the moment.
Yes.
But if you look at the insider buying, there's been a significant amount.
If there are no further questions, thank you everybody for attending, and we will close the discussion.